As we've been reporting, voters are already worried about the next big issue right after the election, the so-called fiscal cliff. It's a series of automatic spending cuts and tax increases that take effect on January 1st unless Congress can agree on alternatives. Our next guest has been working with policymakers on finding solutions to the nation's fiscal issues. He's David Walker, CEO of Comeback America. So, David, what's the first thing the next president has to do to solve this fiscal cliff problem?
Well, I think first, whoever wins tonight should call on the Congress to come back to Washington, D.C. and work full time. That means at least Monday through Friday, taking off only national holidays until they reach a deal on the fiscal cliff. In other words, no deal, no break. And while we have to avoid the fiscal cliff, we need to achieve a grand bargain next year so that we can avoid the fiscal abyss. So the president should also call on Congress to work Monday through Friday every week, except for federal holidays next year until we have a grand bargain. It's time these people started working full time and generating results.
Well, that sounds like a good way to tackle this huge problem, but what are the chances that congressional lawmakers can agree at the end of the day on some kind of solution?
Well, Susie, I think we have to be realistic. I mean, you're not going to get a so-called grand bargain in a lame duck session. There's a reason it's called lame duck. But I do think what we can do is that we can end up agreeing on not extending, for example, the 2% payroll tax cut. That saves $100 billion. Potentially having some defense and other spending cuts, much less than scheduled to happen under sequestration, and then basically delay the big ticket items until 9 months or so into 2013 to facilitate achieving that grand bargain dealing with social insurance programs, comprehensive tax reform, defense and other spending reductions.
These are all very controversial topics. Let's say that lawmakers and the president don't come to any kind of a deal and we go over the cliff, so to speak. Some economists are saying that means that the U.S. economy goes into recession.
Well, I think we would go into recession. We'd exacerbate our unemployment and underemployment problems unless it was reversed very quickly. But what a lot of people haven't focused on is, it takes 60 votes to get something through the Senate unless you use something called budget reconciliation, which only requires a majority vote. Under current rules, you can only use that if you're making the deficit less, not more. So if you try to reverse, a tax increase, or you try to reverse a spending cut, you're not going to be able to do that unless you have 60 votes, and that's going to be tough.
All right, we have American voters in the polls now who are going to decide who's the next president. But from your point of view, which candidate has the best plan to solve this fiscal crisis, if at all? We have less than a minute.
In all candor, Susie, neither one of them have laid out a comprehensive, incredible plan to solve this problem. I will, however, say that I think that Governor Romney would have a lot more influence over the Republicans in the House than President Obama would. And under the Constitution, all tax bills have to start in the House. And if you can't pass the House, you're going nowhere fast.
Well, we're going to find out soon enough how this all plays out. Thank you very much for coming on the program tonight. David Walker,
Great, Susie.
CEO of Comeback America.